Tonight, Canada's Prime Minister prepares for Job 1, new talks with the U.S. President.
He called me up yesterday, he said, let's make a deal.
Mark Carney promised he's the man with an economic plan. Will the actions match the words? Plus, new parliament, new attitude. My conversation with two rookie MPs. Evidence from the hotel room in the criminal trial of 5 former Canadian junior hockey players.
In Canadian law, consent has to be contemporaneous with the sexual activity.
The on-again, off-again Ukraine minerals deal is on again.
It's also good for them because you'll have an American presence.
The open question, what will the U.S. promise Russia?
From CBC News, this is The National with Heather Hiscox.
Thank you for joining us. Adrian is on assignment. As Canada's main parties campaigned ahead of Monday's election, they did so in the shadow of a threat perceived by all: Donald Trump's tariffs and rhetoric. Now that voters have made their choice, it's time to confront the threat directly. The Prime Minister said he was the right one for the job, and Mark Carney is about to get the chance to prove that. The U.S. President says he's invited him for talks and that Carney is ready to make a deal. Ashley Burke on why the meeting is seen as a top priority in Ottawa as both countries talk about trust and trade relations.
I spoke to him yesterday, couldn't have been nicer.
Donald Trump preparing to sit down with a newly elected neighbor.
I think we're going to have a great relationship. He called me up yesterday, he said, let's make a deal.
He being Mark Carney. Trump spoke to the Prime Minister after the Liberal Party won the election, and they agreed to meet.
He's a very nice gentleman, and he's going to come to the White House very shortly, within the next week or less.
That trip, one of Carney's top priorities. He spent the day working in his office after campaigning on a promise to take on Trump and win.
President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never ever happen.
In his victory speech, Carney called it a hinge moment in history, where the old relationship with the U.S. is over and it's time to make a new deal.
We are over the shock of the American betrayal. We have to look out for ourselves.
Asked today if he's interested in rebuilding relations with Canada, Trump weighed in on the election results.
It was the one that hated Trump, I think the least that won. I actually think the Conservative hated me much more than the so-called liberal. He's a pretty liberal guy.
When Carney sits down with Trump, he says it will be to negotiate a future economic and security relationship as sovereign nations, and the stakes are high.
The government will have to be very clear about what it's prepared to negotiate that can be mutually beneficial for both countries, and not waver from that, and not get distracted by any externalities or by any new statements.
One of those statements released yesterday, a White House spokesperson said that the election does not affect President Trump's plan to make Canada America's 51st state.
Ashley, how is Prime Minister Carney spending his first days in office?
Well, a government source says he's focusing on the U.S. file and at the same time getting briefings, speaking to world leaders like the president of Ukraine, and working on his transition. Carney has to choose his team around him and could build a new cabinet all before a new session of Parliament is expected to start on May 26. He's also expected to hold a press conference this week to share his priorities.
Ashley, thank you very much. Ashley Burke is in Ottawa. Mark Carney made big promises during the election campaign, and Peter Armstrong is looking into those. You've been saying all week that the winning was the easy part.
Yeah.
Now the challenges begin.
Not only that, the clock is really ticking here, right? Carney's whole pitch is that he's an economist, he's an expert, he's navigated all these crises before. Well, now comes, as you say, the hard part, actually doing the work, seeing all this through. Every business association in the country has one of these lists, and I've been going through them of their priorities. And a lot of these lists align pretty well, and they also happen to match up pretty well with the party platform, specifically the platform the Liberals campaigned on.
Carney says that he'll be moving quickly to get some sort of a deal on tariffs, on trade with the Trump administration. But there has to be some progress done domestically too, right?
There does, and that domestic aspect was a key plank in the Liberal platform. Strengthen the Canadian economy so you could sort of blunt the impact of all the tariffs. And we know the hits of those, right? Remove the longstanding interprovincial trade barriers. Carney says he wants to turn Canada into some kind of an energy superpower. If you're going to do that, you got to speed up the approvals process. Military spending, for example, and focus out on Canadian procurement, Canadian companies that make armored vehicles and drones and equipment. All of these lists, though, sort of at the heart of them are industries and sectors and businesses waiting to see if this Prime Minister is going to make good on these promises and actually get things moving.
And if the economic data that we're getting these days, even today, is any indication, that's only going to add to the pressure.
Right. I think there's a question at the heart of all of this as to whether Carney can get something done to boost growth before Canada slips into a recession. Because as you say, the economy is quite weak. GDP numbers out today showed the economy actually contracted in February. There's no cushion here, Heather. And, on the political side of this, there's an awful lot of skepticism that the Carney government's going to be any different from the Trudeau government. And I think, in a lot of ways, progress on these files that we're talking about won't just address the economic problems. They might well address some of the political problems as well.
Thank you, Peter. The Conservative Party is also looking to chart its path forward in its parliamentary role as official opposition. The party made significant gains, but leader Pierre Poilievre lost his own seat. Kate McKenna tells us it appears he still has strong backing.
When Pierre Poilievre started the campaign, he planned to move out of the opposition leader's home, Stornoway, and into the Prime Minister's residence. His party didn't win, but he's set to move out anyway after he lost his own seat.
Decisions are made moving forward about how to represent our party in the House of Commons right away. Those are going to be had, but at this point, I'm behind Pierre Poilievre as our leader.
High-profile Conservatives, including Deputy Leader Melissa Lantsman and Andrew Scheer, are lining up to support Poilievre's continued leadership, noting he made big gains, especially in Ontario.
We're looking at a party that got a stronger showing in the national vote than we did even when we formed a majority government back in 2011.
The Conservative leader hasn't spoken publicly since his party's loss. Sources say he's been making calls, shoring up support, and charting a path forward.
Conservative Party of Canada, well, I hope they do some soul searching.
So far, progressive Conservative premiers have been the most outspoken against him.
I think the Conservative Party of Canada was very good at pushing people away, not so good at pulling people in, and I think that they probably saw that in some of the results they had across the country.
Last time I checked, Pierre Poilievre never came out in our election. Matter of fact, him or one of his lieutenants told every one of his members, don't you dare go out and help the PCs.
A Conservative MP could resign so Poilievre could run again, but the Liberal government gets up to 6 months to announce a by-election.
They knocked him out. And they're not going to be in any big hurry to create some on-ramp for him to come back in. Like, this was the whole point, for him not to be elected.
As you heard, Parliament is set to reconvene on May 26th, and the party is going to have to choose someone to represent them in the House of Commons as the interim leader of the official opposition.
Kate, publicly, all these Conservatives are coming out to support Pierre Poilievre. Is that the full picture, though, of what's happening?
At this time, based on conversations with sources, there's no serious push to replace Pierre Poilievre as party leader. There is some grumbling, though. Yes, they made gains, but some people thought the party wasn't tough enough on the tariff threat. Others were upset that the party handpicked candidates to run in some ridings. Poilievre will face a leadership review at the next convention sometime in the next 2 years because the party did fail to form government.
Kate, thank you very much. Kate McKenna is in Ottawa tonight. Jonathan Pedneault is stepping down after almost 3 years as Green Party co-leader, citing what he called deeply disappointing election results. In a statement posted on X, Pedneault said he took responsibility for the failure to translate the party's ideas into electoral gains, and having personally twice failed to convince fellow citizens to send him to Ottawa. Co-leader Elizabeth May won the party's only seat. This was day 3 in the criminal trial of 5 former members of Canada's World Junior Hockey team. The Crown presented evidence in texts and video from the hotel room where it says the complainant was sexually assaulted. Katie Nicholson reports from London, Ontario, and a warning, you might find some of her details disturbing.
The night that ties 5 former teammates together in litigation, now coming into clearer focus. Former World Junior Hockey players Michael McLeod, Cal Foote, Dylan Dubé, Alex Formanton, and Carter Hart are all charged with sexually assaulting a then 20-year-old woman, known as EM, in June of 2018. They have all pleaded not guilty. A London Police Service detective presented surveillance videos from Jack's Bar, where McLeod danced with EM, and of the two entering the Delta Hotel, where they had sex in room 209. Key evidence in the case, the texts that followed. At 2:10, McLeod texted some players, "Who wants to be in a three-way? Quick, 209, Mikey." Someone using Carter Hart's phone responded, "I'm in." At 2:15, another text from McLeod to teammate Taylor Radish, inviting him to his room using a slang term for oral sex. Radish, now a Washington Capital, took the stand, but could recall little of that night. He said he was in McLeod's room briefly, but left and went to bed. He is not charged in the matter. A text on Radish's phone from McLeod a week later told him there was an investigation. Court also watched two videos of EM taken from McLeod's phone, one at 3:25 a.m., in which he asks, "You're okay with this?" She responds, "I'm okay." And again at 4:26 a.m., in which she asks if she's being filmed, and a male voice is heard saying, "It was all consensual?" She says, "You're so paranoid, holy. I enjoyed it. It was fine. It was all consensual. I am so sober. That's why I can't do this right now."
In Canadian law, consent has to be contemporaneous with the sexual activity.
And this law professor says people can change their minds. Complicating matters, each player is charged with a separate, specific assault.
The video is not going to be determinative of whether there was consent at the time for the specific acts. The video may be helpful for assessing the credibility of witnesses, for sort of getting a sense of what was really going on here.
And there's more to come from other players who were there that night and the woman at the center of the trial, EM. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, London, Ontario.
Vancouver's mayor wants more mental health support for those in crisis after 11 people were killed Saturday at a Filipino street festival. The suspect was under supervision at the time, and that detail is fueling debate about public safety. Here's Lindsay Duncombe.
Guy G. Adam Lowe was being treated under the Mental Health Act when he allegedly drove into the crowd at a Vancouver street festival, killing 11 people. Lowe's care team says he was compliant and didn't suspect violence.
Now, this is incredibly difficult to hear and even harder to accept because it points to a deeper failure in the mental health system.
Vancouver's mayor said while the specifics are under investigation, Vancouver has seen several violent, high-profile incidents potentially linked to the mental health crisis. Last December, police shot and killed a man who attacked a clerk at a downtown 7-Eleven. 6 months ago, one victim had his hand severed and another was killed after a knife attack. And a man on a day pass from a psychiatric center was charged after 3 people were stabbed at a Chinatown festival in 2023.
We need action.
This former police chief says the answer is more inpatient care.
We have to make the changes to the Mental Health Act so these people are not out there.
Those changes would fall to the province. Wednesday, the Premier announced a review of the Mental Health Act and said BC is expanding care.
It is a full system expansion that's underway right now.
We spend a great deal of money in British Columbia on mental health and addiction, but what's happening is most of that money is actually going to addiction services.
Vancouver psychiatrist Diane McIntosh says there are so few psychiatrists in the province, she wouldn't even have anyone to refer to a sick family member.
And the care that people who are living with mental illness are receiving is abysmal. And hopefully this will be a wake-up call.
The legacy of all this sadness, she says, could be meaningful change. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford, while announcing bail reform measures in an upcoming justice bill, went on a self-described rant about the province's, quote, bleeding heart judges.
Why don't we have the next election, the PC party, the Liberal Party, the NDP party, the Green Party, and the Judges Party, because they overturn everything, right down to the bike lanes. So, we get democratically elected, and some judge slaps an injunction on bike lanes. Don't the judges have anything better to do than worry about if we're taking out bike lanes?
Ford suggested judges be elected, as they are in the United States. Earlier this month, an Ontario judge temporarily halted the province's plans to remove nearly 20 kilometers of bike lanes in Toronto while he weighs a constitutional challenge. A Columbia University student and U.S. permanent resident has been released from immigration detention.
To President Trump and his cabinet, yes. I am not afraid of you.
Mohsen Madawi was arrested 2 weeks ago after attending a citizenship interview. He wasn't charged with a crime, but the Trump administration says his participation in protests undermines U.S. policy to combat anti-Semitism. He's one of at least 3 international students who've been jailed for advocating on behalf of Palestinians. The Trump administration has signed a deal with Kyiv, giving the U.S. access to Ukraine's mineral resources. How that changes the war in Ukraine on the ground remains to be seen. But as Briar Stewart reports, it has changed the tone from Washington.
After months of turbulent negotiations, the U.S. and Ukraine finally signed a minerals deal, one that Donald Trump has been pushing for ever since he was sworn in.
We made a deal where our money is secure, where we can start digging and doing what we have to do. It's also good for them because you'll have an American presence.
The agreement creates what's being called a Reconstruction Investment Fund. Under it, the U.S. will have preferential access to new Ukrainian natural resource deals. But crucially, Ukraine will maintain ownership over its resources, won't have to repay the U.S. for tens of billions of dollars worth of previous military aid, and for the first 10 years, the fund's profits will be reinvested, either into new extraction projects or reconstruction. Under the deal, the U.S. may provide new assistance like air defenses for Ukraine.
Today's agreement signals clearly to Russian leadership that the Trump administration is committed to a peace process centered on a free, sovereign, and prosperous Ukraine over the long term.
Wait a minute. No. You've done a lot of talking.
That language alone is a strong sign of support and a major shift from this explosive meeting in the Oval Office in February. But so far, the political deal-making hasn't changed the situation in Ukraine's besieged cities. Overnight, Russia launched more than 100 drones at targets across Ukraine. All of our windows are blown out, said this mother, and our balcony is destroyed. The Kremlin is refusing to agree to a 30-day ceasefire and is instead suggesting a 3-day one. It's designed to coincide with Victory Day, where Moscow commemorates the defeat of Nazi Germany. But as its troops rehearse for the parade, its military continues to target Ukrainian cities night after night. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
Parts of Ontario and Quebec are cleaning up tonight after a string of damaging storms.
The power outage happened between 2 surgeries.
The disturbing impact on a major Montreal hospital next. Plus, a front row seat to an important lesson in Canadian history.
Happened in all those people who sacrificed their lives.
The students traveling to the Netherlands for the 80th anniversary of Liberation Day. And the moment a Toronto food bank got a boost from a legendary rock band. We're back in 2. Spain's electrical grid operator is denying that an overdependence on solar power was responsible for the country's worst ever blackout. Monday's power outage halted trains, shut down airports, and trapped people in elevators. At least 3 deaths are being blamed on the blackout, with several others still under investigation. The lights are still out tonight in thousands of homes and businesses across Quebec, one day after a series of violent thunderstorms. Sarah Levitt looks at the resulting chaos on the streets and at one of Quebec's largest hospitals.
Ominous skies in Montreal Tuesday night gave way to a torrential downpour, an absolute deluge, along with high winds, cutting off power, ripping off roofs, bringing down balconies and trees. A 15-year-old boy was rushed to hospital in life-threatening condition after being pinned by a downed tree. A similar scene earlier in the day when the same weather system moved through Toronto. A 30-year-old woman critically injured after being hit by a tree branch. The storm caused chaos at a major hospital in Montreal's East End. Parts of Maisonneuve-Rosemont Hospital, including the intensive care unit and operating rooms, were plunged into darkness for more than an hour.
To not have functioning backup generators is a major red flag for the hospital.
Dr. Mark Carney rushed back to the hospital when he heard about the outage. Patients were hurried to the ER where power was still on, and surgeries were postponed. A number of windows also shattered.
We were very lucky because the power outage happened between two surgeries. So just imagine if it had happened in the middle of a surgery, that would have been major issues for the patients. This was an extremely close call, and I think this adds the urgency of the situation.
The controversy unleashing a political storm in Quebec City.
We are putting Quebecers at risk with what happened.
For decades, various governments have promised major overhauls to the aging hospital. Recently, the Legault government postponed its plans to begin work, but says things will go in fast forward now.
I know very well that we need to do something.
Elsewhere, it's cleanup time, making repairs, clearing branches, and getting power back up and running. We don't have a roof anymore, says this homeowner, trying to take the mess all in stride. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
A small Canadian island has found itself in a very unique and difficult position since the start of the U.S. trade war.
I can only get this here. And it's made in America, so it's 25% tariff.
Coming up, how residents are coping on Campobello Island. Plus, after this week's vote, we catch up with some of the new MPs headed to Parliament. The National breaks down the story shaping our world next. Raging wildfires on the outskirts of Jerusalem have forced the evacuation of several communities and the closure of the main highway to Tel Aviv. At least 13 people were treated in hospital for smoke inhalation. Crews from Italy, Croatia, and Macedonia are all helping fight the flames. Dozens of Canadian high school students will be in Europe this week to mark 80 years since Canada helped liberate the Netherlands from German occupation. As Deanna Sumanek-Johnson reports, this is all part of an effort to bring students closer to history.
It's a long way from Summerside PEI to the small town of Bergen op Zoom in the Netherlands.
So these are gifts.
But this vice principal believes the trip is essential for his students to bring history to life.
Remembrance Day was just kind of a one-day-a-year thing, and we just decided that here that we're going to try to do it a little bit differently.
Students will walk in the footsteps of soldiers who helped liberate the Netherlands from Nazi occupation in 1945 and lay a plaque on a grave.
I mean, it's very easy to think, oh, it was 100 years ago, it doesn't really make a difference what happened, but everything that happened and all those people who sacrificed their lives were for the freedoms today.
For kids born well into the 21st century, many without living relatives who fought in the Second World War, Canada's role in victory in Europe 80 years ago can seem remote, abstract.
This town here that we're going to liberate.
Still, teachers like Jackie Shaw, who is also taking students to the Netherlands and France, say the interest is there, sometimes in surprising places.
Some of these kids do have a connection via their parents serving in the Canadian military. Some of them just, I think, naturally love history, which is great. To be honest, I think some of them are interested in it because of playing video games at some point, right?
Us living back then, we would have to go to war as well because they were like 2 years older than us, so not that big of an age gap.
And teachers say it's not just about the lessons of the past.
In light of recent events, I think it's important that we wave our flag proudly. And it's important to realize that, we're wanted, we're needed in this global climate.
These bars show how many years he's spent fighting in Europe.
As lessons of history connect with a digital generation born well after the war. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Adrian Arsenault will have more from the Netherlands as the 80th anniversary Liberation Day events unfold. You can tune in anywhere you watch CBC News Friday, May the 2nd at 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. Now it's time to dig deeper into the story shaping our world. Two brand new MPs give us their views on working across party lines.
I'll be working to reach out across the aisle to build relationships.
But first, how the tariff war has made life a lot tougher on a New Brunswick island cut off from Canada.
It's a lot of extra strain.
The call to buy Canadian gets complicated. As Kayla Hounsell discovered, just getting Canadian groceries to Campobello Island takes 4 border crossings.
Campobello Island is not like most places. Actually, it's not like any other place in Canada. It's more than a border town. It's completely cut off from the rest of the country. Perhaps best known as the location of Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt's summer home, Campobello Island in the Bay of Fundy is part of New Brunswick. Population roughly 800, it is connected to the state of Maine by a short international bridge. It's not connected to any part of Canada. And there's not much here. No banks, no hardware store.
We have no gas station on the island. So again, the only gas station is in America.
This is Zoltan Sogas. He moved to Campobello from British Columbia.
I signed up for there's a grocery store there, and I can shop at either of them. That's what I thought I was signing up for. And now all the rules have changed.
Let's say you want to buy Canadian. That means crossing the border into the U.S., driving through the state of Maine, crossing back into Canada at St. Stephen, New Brunswick, doing your shopping, crossing back into the U.S., driving back through Maine and across the border again. So if you're having trouble keeping track, that's 4 international border crossings and a 2-hour and 15-minute round trip just to get some groceries.
The issue for me is with Canada. This should have never happened.
We head out to see what that means.
How's it going?
This is the grocery store on the island. There's limited produce, no ice cream, and milk is $11. Sogas can't get everything he needs here, so he heads across the border to Lubec, Maine. More options here, but he has to be careful about what he's buying.
I can only get this here. And it's made in America, so it's 25% tariff.
That's a Canadian tariff, and at this moment, he knows he'll be charged by Canadian border officials on his way back into the country.
We need food to survive, so it does seem wholly unreasonable that our government would slap back with tariffs on casual imports that then so drastically impact a community like this where we rely on American groceries.
That's the way it was for more than a month. Until this moment, while we were shopping.
So I have some news for you.
What's that?
Campobello Island residents are now exempt from the tariffs.
What? What? Says who?
Says the Canadian government.
The finance minister. What? What? That's crazy.
So what's this going to mean for you?
Great. Awesome. It all of a sudden, it removes the whole discomfort with the CBSA officers. It's like, I don't want to be in a weird, awkward standoff with government employees because I'm buying milk.
Many people here say having to pay tariffs for more than a month was yet another example illustrating they need a direct link to the rest of Canada. The COVID-19 pandemic was another time when crossing the border was extremely complicated. Now, during the summer months, there is a ferry that runs from here on Campobello Island directly across the Passamaquoddy Bay to another part of New Brunswick. Advocates say they need that link year-round.
It's a lot of extra strain in an already stressful world.
Alex Carroll is a local island councillor. He's lived here his whole life.
There's always been a push for a full-time ferry, but I think now is the time that the both provincial and federal government have to step up to the plate and finally get us a direct link to the Canadian mainland.
Carroll is also a local fisherman. He says fishing and tourism are the only industries here, and Canadian tourists are not exempt from Canadian tariffs, only residents.
Personally, I've had a lot of people asking about a year-round ferry and if people's going to come through the border or not. And if they don't, where's your tourism business going to come from?
What would be the impact of that on this island?
It could decimate the island.
The owner of these oceanfront cottages says several of her guests have already canceled. The reason? They don't want to travel through the U.S. at this time.
It's not surprising because it seems like there's a lot of uncertainty. Every day it's something else, it seems like, over there.
But people here say over there in Lubec is the same as right here, almost one community. And not everyone here is sold on the Buy Canadian movement.
We can say Superstore is Canadian, and it is, but does the CEO of Superstore need another super yacht? You know, I have a local to me grocery store owned by a local person, and a local to me brewery, and a local to me coffee shop, and a local to me hardware store. They all happen to be owned by Americans, but I would way sooner give my money to small business owners.
It is a spirit of cooperation steeped deep in history, thanks to the American president who loved this place.
About 95% of what we have in the house here is original to the Roosevelt family.
Now Roosevelt Campobello International Park, it is the only true international park in the world.
This was the Roosevelt's sun porch.
Roger Quirk is an American guide here.
I have been here since June 12, 1974.
He says the park is equally funded by the two countries, with half American employees and half Canadian.
This symbolizes peace and harmony between the two countries, the U.S. and Canada. It's the perfect example of that, and we hope it continues forever. I mean, this is major cooperation.
How is it these days with Canadians and Americans working alongside each other?
Oh, they're my best friends, the Canadians. Yeah, we get along great.
Living alongside each other as they always have, connected by the Roosevelt International Bridge, a lifeline for residents of Campobello, and now also the source of extra stress as they worry about what the current American president might do next. One might wonder what FDR would have thought of that.
So, Heather, a difficult situation for people on Campobello Island. Certainly better now for permanent residents anyway, but the tariff exemption doesn't apply to seasonal residents or tourists.
Kelly, you mentioned that seasonal ferry service that gives islanders a direct link to the mainland. When does that resume?
Well, it actually starts this week, but typically it doesn't start running until the middle of June. It's starting earlier this year because of exactly the kind of concerns we've been outlining here. People are worried the tourists won't come. Other Canadian high school sports teams have canceled their games on the island, the mayor tells me, because they didn't want to travel through the U.S. to get there. So folks are hoping getting this ferry up and running will at least take care of that, Heather.
Okay, Kayla, thank you very much. Up next, after the vote, two of Canada's newest MPs share their hopes as they head to Parliament Hill.
I really hope to focus on finding solutions for the opioids crisis.
More from our conversation after the break. A lot of first-time MPs are headed to Parliament to govern a country deeply divided by politics.
Let's put an end to the division and anger of the past.
So we're asking two of those rookies how they plan to get things done in a minority government. Tamara Cronus scored a Conservative win in the BC riding of Nanaimo Ladysmith, and voters chose Liberal Emma Harrison in the Ontario riding of Peterborough. Emma, Tamara, welcome and congratulations to you both. Listen, Tamara, I'll start with you. You told supporters in your victory speech it was an incredible experience to run for office. What do you think it's going to be like to be in office and to work as an MP?
Well, I'm just honored and excited to be able to represent my riding. I'm grateful to my volunteers and to my team. And I'm so looking forward to finding out how it is that we make laws in this country, and to try and do everything I can to make sure that I'm part of a team of people that makes really good ones.
And you too, Emma, on that point, you've gone from farming and small business down into politics. What are your expectations of this whole new world?
Well, first, I would like to thank all of my volunteers and everyone who has voted for me in our community. I think that it's going to be a really big, exciting adventure in a very difficult time. But I know that the people of Canada have chosen well in the team that they want to see make those big changes and commitments.
We'll talk about difficult time and how to meet that in just a second. But I'd like to ask you, Tamara, first of all, or not first of all, but about your riding. Nanaimo Ladysmith, one of a number of ridings we saw on Monday night that were held by the NDP that flipped not to the Liberals, but to the Conservative Party. How were you able to do that? Tell me about what in your message do you think resonated?
Well, I think that really what it came down to in our riding were the conversations at the doorstep. I was lucky to be able to have an early nomination, and so really got the chance to connect with people. And the messages that I was hearing on the doorsteps were the ones that were reflected in our platform. And so I think that that is what led the path to victory in our riding.
And what about you in that perspective, Emma? Again, you're going to be going to Ottawa in government. It's a minority government, though, with a strong Conservative opposition with MPs like Tamara. How do you think your party is going to be able to navigate things to get the Liberal agenda through?
I think that what the country is asking, which is that we all work together to put the citizens of this country first. And I think that that has been missing at times, and I'm really hopeful that we see that as we move forward.
And what about you, Tamara, on that? Because we did hear from your leader on election night saying that there would be common cause in terms of the Conservative Party helping the government in dealing with Washington and the threats coming out of the Trump administration. How do you see this very, very split parliament working in terms of addressing those common concerns?
I think that's one of the incredible things about Vancouver Island. It's a microcosm of Canada, and at this point it has MPs from all four parties. And I'll be working to reach out across the aisle to build relationships and to really work hard for the people of my riding to make sure that we deliver the things that they need, which in our case is real movement on affordability, addressing the housing crisis in a meaningful way, and really working to make sure that we bring our loved homes drug-free and restore that kind of sense of community in our riding.
Emma, what are the expectations of your leader? Mark Carney is someone with tremendous international experience, but not as the leader of a political party, not as a leader of government. What do you think, or how do you think he's going to run things?
I think that he will do what he has proven to do in the past, which is that lead people through a really difficult economic times, and that we as a party have put forward an excellent platform to do so. And to Tamara's point, same issues are what our communities are facing across the country: affordability and housing crisis, as well as a lack of mental health services and addiction. And so I, chose to run because I do believe that Prime Minister Mark Carney is the perfect leader for this time, and I'm excited to see just what we can get done.
And on the issue of leadership, Tamara, yours lost his seat, and I'm wondering whether you still support Pierre Poilievre as Conservative Party leader.
Absolutely.
Why? Why is he the man still to lead?
The thing that I admire most about Pierre Poilievre is the man that I saw whenever he came to the island. And the first thing that he would ask me every single time was he would look at me and he would say, "Tamara, what are you hearing at the doors?" He is an incredible person who has an incredible capacity for information, and he has been absorbing the stories of Canadians across this country for the last for decades, for literally for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And that is what's been translated into our policy. And it's one of the things that Canadians are looking for. And I think that's the reason why you saw the highest number of votes for our party in history. And I think that there's tremendous support there and tremendous affection.
And how do you think he's going to handle leadership, and how do you think it's all going to work when he's not in the House for question period and actually holding a seat to lead from that vantage point?
You know, one of the incredible things about Pierre Poilievre is the team that he's built in our caucus. And we are all there for them, and as we are there for Canadians. And we are going to pull together, and we are going to continue to put forward a hopeful agenda to work across the aisle for the benefit of Canadians under the strong and really intelligent, dedicated leadership of Pierre Poilievre.
Emma, let me ask you, in terms of looking to the future, we know as of tonight that May the 26th is when you'll both be back, when Parliament is set to return May the 26th, so it's quickly upcoming. For your first day, what are you most excited about, and where do you hope to contribute?
Oh, I'm really looking forward to meeting all of the members of Parliament and getting a better sense of who I'll be working with, and I guess just really enjoying the moment, feeling so incredibly grateful to have this opportunity, because it is not one I take lightly. I have a lot of work to do and to prove to the people of my riding just why they voted for me.
A lot of learning for sure, and as I mentioned, a whole new world. Tamara, last question to you to end on that similar point, from law to this world, and as you said, you're interested in finding out how the whole process of creating legislation works. What are the key issues for you? What are the key areas you hope to focus on in opposition?
So I really hope to focus on finding solutions for the opioids crisis and the mental health and addictions crisis that has gripped our country and has gripped British Columbia, and particularly has gripped Nanaimo. You know, the first thing I did as an MP was to make a call to a constituent who was in a difficult place because of something that was connected to the crisis. And I will carry that with me for the next 4 years, and I will do everything I can to make sure that we put an end to the suffering and that we do, in fact, bring our loved ones home drug-free.
Well, we will wish you the very best of luck and hope that public service meets all of your expectations, and we'll be watching when Parliament resumes. Thank you, Emma. Emma Harrison. Thank you, Tamara Cronus as well.
Thank you.
Now, to let you in on a promising moment off camera, after our conversation ended, Tamara invited Emma to have coffee with her when they arrive in Ottawa to chat about ways they could work together. I mentioned Adrian's on assignment tonight. She's on her way to the Netherlands to host special coverage this Friday. 80 years ago, Canadian soldiers fought to liberate that country from the Nazis. Some of the surviving veterans described their experience for us. Here's a preview.
We were the first ones in there. There they were to welcome us.
A spirit of wild fiesta reigns in towns and villages freed by the Canadian drive.
The Germans were on the run.
Because the Germans were on the run, that means they were hiding everywhere, making for the closest of calls.
I was told to go down and check this farmhouse. He said, throw a grenade in first and then go in. So I just went there and I said, no way I'm going to throw any grenade. I opened the doors, a whole family of Dutch. There they were, 5 of them. You can't forget that, you know. Yeah.
They killed so many of the Dutch people. It was unbelievable. They would just hand their hands and knees to us. You're Canadian.
Ernie was hurt in these battles. He got shrapnel in his ankle from a bomb going off as he landed a jump. It was such a vicious wound, his ankle had to be rebuilt when he eventually got home. But getting home at all was extraordinary. 7,600 Canadians didn't.
There's a shot of the legendary heavy metal band Metallica playing to a sold-out stadium in Toronto last week. Before they left town, the band quietly made a major donation to help families in need. That gesture makes our moment.
Yeah, so it's certainly an unusual phone call. You think, are we being pranked on this? But no, we weren't. What Metallica was doing was saying, hey, we're going to provide great concerts here in Toronto, but we want to leave a lasting legacy. And that lasting legacy was 40,000 meals for the city of Toronto. Before the pandemic, we were serving about 60,000 clients per month. And now that number is 330,000. It was about 3 days between the phone call and being invited to meet the band. They had experienced both poverty and food insecurity growing up. Kurt the lead guitarist, spoke really very candidly about what he experienced he now can give back, and maybe will be an impetus for others to say, you know what, I can make a difference, and hopefully they follow Metallica's lead.
This is actually the second time Metallica has helped Daily Bread. The band donated all proceeds from a 2016 show to the food bank as well. This time, Metallica also gave $40,000 to Nellie's, a women's shelter in Toronto's East End. So doing a whole lot of good before they faded to black. Thank you for being with us. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to the National's YouTube channel. I'm Heather Hiscox. Good night.